And I say to any young actor, the hardest job in this industry is the guest role. When you come on to a set of really well-established characters and actors who know that set and know how it all works, you feel as though, you know, you're just walking in and you have never tried your character on in front of other people, and you walk on to this machine, well-oiled running machine, and it's terrifying, you know.
Hey there, it's Connor Muller and welcome to Let's Chat Showbiz. This podcast is all about Australian showbiz. We're talking the glitz, the glam, the tough times and everything in between. Let's get this show on the road. Today's guest is an award-winning actor, a writer who has an extensive career in showbiz. From film to television to the stage, with an endless list of credits on the screen. You may recognise him from shows like Full Frontal, The Moodys, and recently on Colin from Accounts. We're thrilled to welcome Darren Gilshenan.
Thank you, Connor. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you for coming. Now, in 1988, you were a graduate at NIDA.
Yes.
How did that become and what was that like?
So I was the youngest in my year, that much I remember, and I was on probation for the first 2 years, on the verge of being kicked out. The second 2 years. The first year I managed to get through because I was very naughty. How did I, it was kind of fortuitous how I ended up at NIDA, because I thought I was going to be a Brisbane actor. I was born and bred in Brisbane. I'd been in the Brisbane Youth Theatre, the Queensland Youth Theatre, Brisbane Arts Theatre. I'd done local theatre companies, community theatre companies and stuff like that. And I knew all of the lecturers at Kelvin Grove Advanced College of Education, which now is QUT. And that was the acting school in Brisbane. That was kind of the Queensland acting school. That was the one to aim for. So I was on a trajectory to go there in the fact that I knew all the lecturers. I did the first round of auditions, kind of coasted through, and then got to the recalls where they got everyone together. And so, I don't know, being young and cocky, I think I was not even 17 yet, just finishing school. I just sat back a little bit and just didn't show my... didn't get on the front foot and show my enthusiasm, and I didn't get in. They said, we're worried that you wouldn't have worked with a group too well, that I might have been too, too egotistical too. So it was a good lesson in that, because I kind of was. But I also had auditioned for NIDA just on a whim, and I'd got right down to the last 3, but they said to me, you're too young, you need some life experience. And I'd also auditioned for James Cook University, which was in Townsville, which was just a weird thing to do because it was so far away. Yeah. And I'd never moved away from home or anything. So, and I got into that one. So I went to Townsville, spent a year there, did my firsts of everything and 10 times over, came back to Brisbane at the end of that year, auditioned and got into NIDA. So then I was in Sydney for 35 years.
Yeah, wow.
It was one of those sliding mirrors moments, sliding doors moments, where I thought I was going to be a Brisbane actor, and I probably still would be there today.
Yeah, wow.
If my own cockiness and ego hadn't have got in the way and sent me in a different direction.
And you also spent 10 years with the Bell Shakespeare company. What was that like?
That was amazing. It was a really good time for Bell Shakespeare, because we had then the Bell Ensemble, which was 3 years of the same actors working together. John Bell was very keen to want to really develop Shakespeare skills. And when he first started the company in 1990 or 92, not many Australian actors knew how to do Shakespeare apart from John Bell. So the shows, and they were doing it in a tent back then, right at the beginning, but the shows were quite uneven as far as skill level went. You had some people in there, some of these older actors that really knew their craft, and then all these young actors that didn't know how to, speak iambic pentameter, or, couldn't articulate or pronunciate, or just didn't have the style that Shakespeare kind of requires. So part of his aim was to train people up. So we had the Bell Ensemble for 3 years of that 10. And then in that, we also had another level, which were associate artists. So there were about 5 of us that became associate artists. And the idea is we were also involved in training of other actors who were kind of coming in. So it was a very fertile time. I was also doing a lot of movement direction for the company at that time, like in a lot of the battle scenes and a lot of the kind of big sequences. I was kind of heavily involved in kind of choreographing that kind of stuff, because I had done a lot of that kind of physical theatre and stuff before I hit Bell Shakespeare. So that was an amazing time. And I think we did 17 national tours over that 10 years.
Yeah, wow. Now, you have an endless list of credits in theatre, film and television. Let's start with theatre. I've gone through a few of your stage credits that popped out to me. In 2014 and 15, you did Mother and Son.
Yes.
You played Arthur alongside Nolene Burke and Shane Jacobson, is that correct?
Shane Jacobson, yes. And Nolene Brown. That was Jeffrey Atherton, who wrote the original Mother and Son, wrote this stage version where he took three of the episodes and he kind of combined them into one play. And so that was a commercial production that we did in Melbourne and Newcastle and Sydney and a couple of other places. Shane Jacobson was the first brother. He was the dentist. And then when we did the next version, Rob Carlton was the dentist. And Robbie Carlton, directing Robbie Carlton in his shows right now. Yeah. And that was because we were coming to the end of that Melbourne season and Shane could only do that. And I just spoke to the producer and I said, Rob Carlton, he'd be fantastic. Let's get him in. So we had a lovely time together on that. But that was a beautiful, beautiful play. He did such a good job. It's just one of those, those like quintessential Australian pieces that everyone kind of knows of. And as soon as the music would start at the beginning of the show, the audience would go, oh, and kind of applaud. And then the curtain would go up and then it's the exact kind of replica of the set of the TV show. And everyone would go, whoa, sort of like, this kind of old age pop culture thing going on there. And Nolene Brown, an absolute pro, just knew how to kind of get that round from the audience, like a lot of pros do. As soon as she'd open the door, she'd walk in the semi-dark, but she'd just lift her chin up a little bit, so the light had blanched across her face and the audience would kind of give her around just before she started the show.
Had you worked with either of those, Shane Jacobson and Nolene, prior to Mother and Son?
No, I hadn't worked with Shane. I knew him socially.
Yep.
Because Shane's everywhere. So I'd seen him at bunches of awards things and stuff like that. And I hadn't worked with Nolene either. Nolene actually, about 3 weeks into rehearsal, fell over and broke her hip. She was on like double kind of walkers for the beginning of the production. She was amazing. She went and had a hip operation and was back in the rehearsal
and kept going.
Yeah. Ripe old age of just under the old 80. She amazing stamina.
Wow. Now, in 2015, you also did Strictly Ballroom the Musical, directed by Baz Luhrmann. You played Doug Hastings. Do you remember much about that?
Do I remember much about it? You tend to remember a lot about musicals because you do them over and over and over and over and over and over again. But I dropped in for the Melbourne and Brisbane season, took over from Drew Forsyth. The rest of the gang had been doing the show for a couple of years. Musicals. I started off doing musicals when I first kind of began my career, and there's something about them. They carry you along. As soon as that kind of orchestra strikes up and the overture starts, there's always a tremendous sense of here we go again. A bright, uplifting, multi kind of styled show with all sorts of trickery of lights and sets and huge casts and great songs. It's a fun thing to do. And I was kind of playing the depressant character in it, who was the son to the main guy. Oh, Tom, was it Tom? Tom was the actor's name. Yeah, that was lovely. It was always lovely because at the end of each night we would invite the audience up on the stage and sing "Lovers in the Air."
Oh, wow.
And the audience would just leap up.
Yeah.
So you just kind of dance on the stage and sing. That was a great way to finish a night's work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, it was directed by Baz Lemon.
Yes, but I didn't work with Baz. So Baz did the original, staged the original production. When I came in, I worked with Sharon Millichip.
Oh yeah.
And she was the resident assistant director.
Yeah. In 2017, you did Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf alongside Genevieve Lemon. What was that like?
Fantastic. Yeah, an amazing play, an amazing experience. Ian Sinclair, who directed it, I've worked with 5 times now. I did, the last thing I did was Hamlet in Melbourne. And then before that, The Caretaker, Pinter. But Ian has this way of seeing dimensions within characters. Like his work is so nuanced. And that play, which is in 3 very particular acts, and he managed to make each act its own aria. It was completely, so it had this huge swing. The first act is a comedy show. It's a couple of very intelligent university, lecturers come home very drunk from a party, and they're acerbic and they go each other, and they just, there's so much humour in how they treat each other. It is so funny. And then Act 2 is when the young pups arrive, and Act 2 kind of sweeps into this mind games, sexual flirtation, battle of intellect. It's all about games and all about manipulation, and it kind of gets very kind of dark, it starts to get really dark and dangerous. And suddenly all that comedy disappears, and they start to taunt each other, you know what I mean? And it blurs into, this could turn really violent. And then Act 3 is like a Greek tragedy, which has an exorcism in it, where, George gets up with the bloody Bible and starts, trying to exorcise Martha's, who's a severe alcoholic like him, image that they have this child which doesn't exist, which died years ago, is trying to exorcise that out of her. So, and he's speaking it all in Latin, and it's full of weird prayers, and it's very ritualistic. So it's just got an amazing swing as a play. I think a lot of the versions, or the way people imagine that play, is like the original, what's her name and what's his name? Elizabeth. Hang on, stop for a second while I catch up with my brain. Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, who did the original play. And that was also recorded. And that 1973, round about that, I think it was. And they scream at each other the whole time. Like it's 3 hours of just kind of torment. Whereas I think through a modern lens, I think there's a lot more in that. And I think Ian Sinclair as a director found that sweep of a play that starts off, lulls the audience into a sense of, this is a fun night in the theatre. These guys are hilarious. And then they start to go, whoa, what are they doing? Where's this going? Oh, shit. Oh, God. And then it kind of becomes harrowing at the end. Because you really should feel, because right at the end of that play, George says to Martha, after putting her through all this stuff, and she's kind of slept with a young guy during it, like it's all gone crazy. It goes right through the night to the next morning, the sun pops up. And George just says to Martha, shall we go to bed now? And she says, yeah. And they go up the stairs together. Well, you think that their relationship has been fractured beyond redemption and that they're going to leave each other. But in the end, they go off to bed together, which is kind of strangely not too off the money of, codependent, abusive relationships, that people can just go through these things over and over again and treat each other the way they do and then freaking stay together.
And that was with Genevieve Lemon?
Genevieve Lemon, yes. Genevieve Lemon, who has one of the most mercurial processes She's very, very late to learn her lines, I will say that. She probably wouldn't mind me saying that. So much so that in the previews, there was might have been bits of script stuck around the stage and underneath things and in books, so she could have a little look. But she is kind of by nature as a performer just so in the moment and so changeable and unpredictable, unpredictable in her movement of emotion, but also in maybe what comes out of her mouth when it comes to the lines. So you kind of watch and listen, but she's a master. She never stops working in all forms.
Yeah.
She sings.
She's always doing something.
Yeah, always. Yeah. She does theatre, she does film, she does television. She's one of those actors that can kind of transform and understand the different performance styles, the different sorts of mediums.
Now, obviously you've done so much theatre work. What do you think was the hardest role you've had to play on stage for you? Well,
probably two for different reasons. One was when I did Truffaldino and The Servant of Two Masters, which we toured nationally and then toured again and then toured again. I think we did almost 300 shows of that. That was difficult because it was a commedia dell'arte and it was highly physical and very, very required a kind of level of fitness. So for a good chunk of time there, I was like peak fit for that show, and it was loose and it was full of impro, and there was never one show that was the same. It was a joyous show. It actually managed to win a Helpman Award for that, for Best Actor, which is one of the rare times that someone has won a Best Actor Helpman Award for a comedy performance. Most of the time it goes to drama, because comedy is seen as the lesser sibling. But that was, physically really demanding. But the one that was emotionally really disturbing was The Caretaker, was Davies, who's kind of like a schizophrenic, alcoholic, homeless man who imagines all these versions of himself and is all these versions of himself. It was such a fascinating experience in rehearsals, because normally when you're honing in on a character, you start to see the parameters. You start to see the dimensions of a character, and you go, oh, okay, these are kind of the behaviours. These are the kind of things he's saying about himself from his past. So you can say, look, this is his conditioning, or this was his demographic, or, you start to see the shape. I could not see a shape to that character. And I remember it was sitting down with Ian Sinclair and saying, I can't see who this guy is. One minute he's pretending to be this. Next minute he's talking about his days in the military. Next minute he's a homeless dish pig. Next minute he's acting like this well-educated lord, smoking a pipe. Next minute and Ian was the one that said, I think he's all of those things. And whenever you come across a moment for that character, you've just got to play that moment and let the sum of all those behaviours be what the character is, and let go of the notion of where the truth is. Because we kept saying, is that true? Did he do that? Or is he just bullshitting? Is he just telling another story about himself? And in the end, it was like, well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, Pinter was famous for never answering questions about his plays and characters. People would try to pin him down all the time, and he'd just kind of say, what do you think, So once we kind of let go and went, I think an actor's always desperate to want to understand where the truth is, or what the meaning of that is, or what that line is. We always want to understand what's behind it all so we can best portray it. But sometimes it's just in the ear of the audience, in the eye of the beholder. You just present the things and let the audience make their mind up. It's something I learned very much in the last play I did in Melbourne. I did a play called Job. It's an American play about a woman. It's all set in a therapy, it's all a therapy session. And I played the therapist, and Jessica Clarke played this woman who works in Silicon Valley, who is suffering major PTSD because her job is she's an internet moderator. So she has to watch all the worst of the worst stuff on the internet. It works for a big company like Google or whatever, and red flag it so it gets taken down. and these are real jobs, you know, that people kind of work for these organisations, and it's some kind of emotional torture where you have to watch. You can imagine, you know, animal torture videos, child abuse videos over and over and over again, multiple times each video, because you'll have a whole checklist of all the things you have to tick for the reasons why it should be taken down, so you're legally protected when you make that move. And this play, which is a therapy session, had an extraordinary twist in the back end of it, where the audience could or could not think one of two things. And I won't give it away because we're hoping that we get to do it again. But it was extraordinary just to kind of realise, oh, okay, so I know my truth. I've made a decision on what I think is the truth. But a large number of the audience out there would think another truth. And it didn't matter what I did, you know, due to what she was saying about my character. They just took her side.
Yeah, okay.
You know, it's sort of like happens in life. You kind of think, you know, and particularly in this modern age, you know, with fucking fake news and all the rest of it, you just kind of wonder, where is the real truth at? What can we really believe?
That's right.
You know, and our first move is generally to be skeptical about anything we're told these days, which is not a bad idea.
Yeah. Now, moving on to film and television, you've done many roles on screen. I'm just going to list a few of them. A Country Practice, Police Rescue, Full Frontal, The Moodys, Janet King, Wonderland, Stateless, Population 11, Colin from Accounts, Bay of Fires, and Those Shall Not Steal. That's nowhere near all of them. That's only a certain selection of them. Now, in 1992, you played Malcolm Fairfax in A Country Practice for one episode. Was that your first on-screen role?
Yeah. I was terrible. I was so wooden. It was so bad. It was that classic thing, because I do a lot of teaching now as well in between jobs, and I say to any young actor, the hardest job in this industry is the guest role. When you come on to a set of really well-established characters and actors who know that set and know how it all works, you feel as though, you know, you're just walking in, and you have never tried your character on in front of other people. Maybe in front of the mirror, you've kind of had a crack at, you know, the voice and pulled some faces or whatever, but you're not in the skin of that character, and you walk on to this machine, well-oiled running machine, and it's terrifying, you know. And I back then, I was straight out of drama school, I think, and, you know, I was terrified, and I was very bad, very bad.
I've got a clip here of one of your scenes.
No.
Can I show you?
No.
You don't want to see it?
Well, yeah, you'll see how bad I was.
The boy's had some abdominal pain, Doctor. However, at this stage, as you can see, the PD fluid looks pretty clear.
Yeah, that doesn't preclude infection, though?
Definitely not. In fact, he's quite febrile. Temperature 38.2. The other obs are satisfactory. Weight's fine. Pulse 110, BP 80/50.
I'm impressed. You seem to have taken care of everything.
I assume you're going to admit him?
Yeah, and we'll do a full blood workup too.
So there you go.
So young.
Yeah. So that was your first.
That was my first TV thing. Oh, no, well, I'd done a couple of other things before I got, so that was just out of drama school, out of NIDA, right? But before I went to drama school in Queensland, I did some things, some short films, and I did a half-hour film. And then I was in this, God, I'd forgotten about that. It was called Footprints. It was a Catholic Sunday kids program that was shot at the ABC studios, run by the Catholic Church. Or
right.
Because I, you know, went through a Catholic school, and it was just like a kids kind of education program thing. So I had done a bit of camera work.
You did 20 episodes on Full Frontal, but you also wrote 10 episodes?
Yeah, I did Full Frontal and Totally Full Frontal.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I did it for 3 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy working on that?
Yeah, that was hard.
Yeah, okay.
You know, this was kind of mid to late 90s now, and I only got into that by default, I reckon, because they'd auditioned all over Australia. They couldn't find anyone, and I was the last person to audition in Sydney. And because they couldn't find anyone, I reckon they just took me because Eric Bana had just left. So they needed to fill that kind of male role. And I remember doing the audition and going, okay, so what will I do for the audition? Because normally I really prepare for auditions, but this one I didn't. I just went, okay, what are all the things that I can do? And it was like, okay, oh yeah, I can do kind of voices and stuff and impersonations. I can do physical comedy. I can sing. I can, do, different sorts of gags or whatever. So I just went in there and kind of said, well, what do you want to see? And they went, oh, okay, what do you got? And I went, oh, I've got this silly routine thing. So I did that and they laughed. And they went, oh, can you do any voices? I went, yeah, who do you want? And they said, pick someone. They said, Bob Carr. So I just started talking what I imagined what Bob Carr was like at the time. And that worked to a degree. And then they said, oh, here's some scripts. So I had a look at them and kind of read them, and that went well. And so I kind of got in. But then the audition room was hilarious because it was just full of weird carny folk, people with hula hoops and fucking shaved heads and tats and fire sticks, and it was a very broad kind of network of people auditioning for it. So, yeah, I kind of went into that, and in a way I was kind of like the actor of it. A lot of the people in Full Frontal were all ex-stand-ups, apart from Kim Gingell. He was very much an actor, and Sean McAuliffe. But there was just a lot of people that, and a lot of the writing team were all stand-ups as well. So, but part of the thing is we got to write, and our first couple of seasons got to write our own, routines and our own things. So that was great. But it was very fast. And in those days, you were just given a VHS tape and saying, right, tomorrow you're playing Greg Norman, the golfer, and you just go home at night and stick that in and kind of watch and try to get an idea of how to impersonate that character. The great thing about it is the wardrobe and makeup department were extraordinary. So they'd make you look like anything. Yeah. So when we did Seinfeld, and I played Kramer, was Fusilli Jerry, had this whole kind of thing going on. And I looked just like Kramer, So they did that to you, which was great. So you could look at yourself in the mirror before you went out there and go, I'm the dude.
Yeah.
But it was very fast. You're in and out of the chair. We'd do about 7 sketches a day, 2 days location work. So it was all around Melbourne. Then a day of studio. And then you'd have a rehearsal morning, and then you'd have a live show at the end of each week where they'd do about 7 live sketches with a live audience.
Yeah.
So it was like a little theatre show at the end of each week.
Yeah.
And that was for 26 weeks.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's funny you say that because we had Francis Greenslade on a while back, and he said the same thing. It was a great job, but he said it was just hard.
It was
quick
hard.
and hard.
Yeah. And talk about inappropriate stuff going on back then. There was a Kalua ad where there was this bald African-American dude in a pair of kind of shorts and kicks dancing around, and sparks came off him for Kalua, and they made me that guy. So they gave me the ball cap, painted me black.
Oh my God.
And then got me to do that. So there was and that was just one sketch, and then suddenly you're getting all that ripped off.
Wow.
And then new ears and noses and things put on, and so you're in and out of the chair, the makeup chair, all day, just running and getting changed. And you'd be there for half an hour while they did this extraordinary transformation, and then you'd do a sketch for 40 minutes, and then back in the chair again.
Yeah,
but fun. Yeah. Like you really needed to be. The difference between theatre and television and film is television's very intuitive. You just got to make a decision really quickly because it's all moving so quickly anyway, and you only ever get a couple of takes. So you just kind of got to do the best you can, do your homework. But when you hit the set, you've just got to keep your eyes and ears open for opportunities and the best way to make it work. And when I do a lot of comedy television now, when I walk into a space with the scenes happening, I'm looking around at what can I use in this set to create physical comedy with. If I've got a coffee cup there, I might be in a scene where I'm nervous. I'll say, "Oh, well, grab me that sugar bowl there, and I'll put 6 spoonfuls of sugar in my coffee while I'm talking to you about the fact that I'm very comfortable, you know," and then nervously start stirring. So you're always looking at the tangible environment around you in the moment before they roll to work out how you can kind of get comedy off it.
Yeah.
In a way, full frontal. From then on, I was quite terrified when I started it, but from then on, nothing has ever fazed me because that was the hardest.
Brutal.
I think, yeah.
Now, you were on Chandon Pictures.
Yes.
For between 2007 2009 with Rob Carlton, obviously. You're still friends with Rob to this day.
Very good.
You're here in Adelaide for his show.
Yes.
Tell me about working on Chandon Pictures, and then we'll talk about Rob's show after.
Okay. Chandon Pictures. So I think that's where it started. Robbie and I, our relationship goes back a long way. He remembers it better than I do. I think he saw me in the complete works of William Shakespeare abridged.
Right.
And we met in a foyer afterwards. Anyway, he cast me in Chandon, which was really about a dysfunctional documentary team, a producer, a director, and a cameraman. And I was the cameraman. Rebecca Massey was the producer, and Robbie Carlton, Tom Chandon, was the self-proclaimed freaking god of documentary making. But really all we did was make crap, because no one would employ us because we were idiots. So we made like dog testimonial videos, or became private eyes to spy on some guy's wife who we thought was having an affair, while he had an affair with our producer while we were out spying on his wife. So it was just a nightmare. But it was a really fun show because that was one of those shows where it was kind of the beginning, the Australian beginning that I can remember of that mockumentary-styled, fly-on-the-wall kind of narrative character comedy stuff, which then later on Kath and Kim and, all that stuff. But it had kind of crossovers a little bit with things like, say, Modern Family and stuff like that, where you had the 2-camera stuff, which was always Tom Chandon making a documentary about him all the time. So I would film him so he could talk to the camera about stuff, so he could talk to the audience about stuff. Yeah. And then the scenes would happen and you'd have the studio camera filming that. But it was fun because Robbie wrote it with Alex Weinress and Russell, and we spent a lot of time before each scene rehearsing it up. So we'd get rid of the crew and we would just work. The actors would work the material, we'd change stuff, we'd nuance stuff, we'd find the funny, we'd work out the physical stuff. And once we'd kind of rehearsed the scene and got it right, then we'd invite the DP in and the crew and say, like we'd do it like a mini performance. So we'd do it and we'd hear where the laughs were and we'd go, great. It's obviously, it's where we need it to be. And then they'd work out how to shoot it.
Yep.
So there's 2 sorts of sets. There's actors' sets or there's technical sets. This was a real actors' set where the actors got to generate the material and then the technical department worked out how to shoot that material.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of time when you're doing serial television, it's fast. You turn up on set and your mark's already on the ground. And that's the size of your shot. And you're going to go over there and pick that thing up on that line. And you're going to told what to do, which for an actor is like, oh, it's really, constricting. You want to feel as though you can generate, the stuff, and then they should work out how to film the stuff that you generate. So Chandon was a lot of that, where we spent a lot of time creating. And what we realize is that you take another 15 minutes in rehearsal and get it tight, then you're going to save yourself 2 or 3 setups later, which is movements of the camera. So less time shooting it, more time rehearsing it. If you have less time rehearsing it, you're going to take more time covering everything in shots, because the actors are going to be still making decisions halfway through each of the takes. And then they'll go, oh, he picked the cup up at a different time. We better get a shot of that. So you just end up chasing your tail if you don't work it out first.
And you're here for Rob's show here at Adelaide Fringe.
Yes.
Tell me about Rob's show.
My beard's molting. Rob's show, which is the Virgin in a Knife Fight, is the second show, one-man show of his. Last year he did Willing Participant, and I directed him in both of these shows. We call it the Bobby Dazzler acting process because Bobby is a master with a pen. He's a wonderful, wonderful writer, and I'm kind of Mr. Theatricality. Like I know how to shape it and develop characters and develop the physicality and the mime skills and all that kind of mechanics of it. So we kind of blend really well, where he just tells 4 stories. We have one chair is the set. We use that chair in 100 different ways. And we have multi-character acting within it and different areas on the stage. And it's just all about bringing these stories to life in a really vivid, emotional and kind of like, so in a way they play on your imagination. So when he's talking about being in a courtroom and up there the pundits sit and the police are over there and the judge is there. So you actually see the visual, physical world around you. My kind of early influences when I was just finishing drama school, we used to do a lot of black box theatre where we didn't have money. So we, and we'd set up young theatre companies, and we were really heavily influenced by Simon McBurney and Théâtre Complicité and Lepage and these European companies that were coming over and doing this full-on actor-driven theatre where the actors use their bodies and their voices and music and shapes and in really quite abstract ways to create magic. So everything became a symbol. So the chair in this can be a symbol of a knife or a backpack or a pizza, or it can be anything, whatever you want to. It's called object theatre, where you put your energy into that object and make it what you want it to make. And I think that's what's great about theatre. I think theatre in a way sometimes has been taken over by trying to make everything so literal, whereas I think, that's what TV is. TV, you can literal spaces, literal people the right age, whereas theatre, you should be able to play any age, any gender, any nationality, you really should.
That's what an actor's doing, isn't it?
That's what an actor's doing, yeah. Of course, there's lots of taboo around that kind of stuff today, but I'm still of the school that I kind of think, well, that's the craft, and within reason.
Yes.
But yeah, these shows are terrific. Robbie shows, he's won multiple awards: the Perth Festival, Adelaide Festival, Melbourne Festival, Sydney Festival. So this is the second one. Yeah, it's on its way around the country now.
Yeah. Now the Moodys, you did the Moodys, alongside an outstanding cast. Obviously Patrick Bremel. You had Danny Adcock, Tina Bursell, just to name a few. You must have had a lot of fun on that show.
Yeah, the Moodys was a wonderful experience, and it still is.
Yeah.
A Moody Christmas, which they play every Christmas, still, ABC puts it on, has become somewhat of a family get-together where families, because I think it was only 6 episodes, the first one. We did 2. So they're only half hours, so it's only a 3-hour watch. Yeah. It's like like watching a Christopher Nolan film, you know what I mean? It's kind of just a certain length, but I always find around Christmas time, I get stopped on the street everywhere by people going, Uncle Terry, everyone loves that character and loves the sentiment of that show. Yeah. It's like, people used to get together and watch A Christmas Carol or, that wonderful old black and white one. What's it called? With The Greatest Life or something Life? Oh, gosh, I'm showing my ignorance. I can't even remember it. But, but the Australian equivalent of it now is watching a Moody Christmas. Not as many people saw the Moodys, which was the second one.
Yeah, okay. See, I've watched the Moodys, but I haven't watched the Moodys Christmas yet.
Oh, you haven't watched Moody Christmas?
No, that's bad.
Oh, Moody Christmas is great.
Yeah.
It's because
I've watched the Moodys, but I haven't watched the Moodys.
Well, the Moodys is all set in a calendar year.
Right.
So it's a birthday, it's Australia Day, it's all the different things. Whereas a Moody Christmas is set in over 6 years. So it's Christmas. It's Christmas every year. So all this shit happens at Christmas time, which sends the family in different directions.
Is Miranda Otto in one of those episodes as a homeless? They bring in a homeless person.
No, that's Mandy McElhaney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But that
maybe I have watched a bit of it actually.
Yeah. No, that one.
I don't know.
Is that the Moodys? I think that one was the Moodys.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It could have been Moody Christmas.
Either or.
But yeah, so all this stuff happens. And then when the next episode starts, everything's different.
Yeah.
So it takes you the first 10 minutes to work out, I thought they were together, or I thought, is he gay now? But he was married to her, because all this stuff happens in the year, and then you catch up with him again for the next Christmas. So that's, in a way, was what was so great about the show.
Yeah.
The audience, you could just change it so radically due to the fights and the arguments and the chaos that went on any given Christmas
Which
day.
is quite relatable to a lot of people.
Very
because,
relatable.
You know, Christmas.
Gosh, I did it once with my brother-in-law, just sat there and took him to task across the table about his political kind of views about immigration and stuff like that. And my father had to kind of leash me down, you know. He's kind of yell at me, and I kind of came out and realised that, oh, shit. So the next Christmas, I just went, I won't speak to him, you know, because he'll bang on about fucking illegal boat people and stuff like that. So that whole Christmas, I just didn't even talk to him. He was at the table. But if you saw that contextually, you'd think, what a rude bastard. But because of what happened the year before, you understand that if I had have said anything, he would have just popped my fucking brain. So that, very relatable.
You also did No Activity.
Yeah.
Now, is it true that a lot of those scenes were improvised?
Yeah, first series was predominantly all improvised. Yeah. Right. Second series, we wrote.
Okay.
But, Paddy Bramall and Trent wrote most of it.
Yeah.
But the first series, we just improvised. You know, it was so interesting. We came up with that show while we were doing the Moodys, because Paddy Bramall and I, whenever we'd do scenes together, we'd improvise.
Yeah, okay.
And Trent who was directing it, would set the camera up, and we wouldn't even rehearse. He'd just roll and say, off you go. And so we'd just surprise each other with all sorts of weird stuff. And I remember one day doing this scene talking about Yvonne, Sasha Haller's character, who worked at customs with me in the Moodys, who was suffocating me, and I was trying to describe how it felt, and I said, I feel like I said something like a rat in a lubed up bathtub, just trying to get out, and it was just the weirdest image. And then when we came off set, we were walking back to the truck to unit for lunch, and Trent said, we should do a show where you and Patrick, just with you and Patrick, and you just improvise. And then there was a bit of a pause. He went, yeah, that'd be good. And he said, yeah, and it should be a cop show. And we went, yeah. He went, and it should be a cop show where nothing happens. So you're just forced to talk all the time while you're waiting for something to happen, you know, where there's no activity. And it was kind of born.
Yeah, wow.
So we got together a few weeks later in the basement of Jungle, which was a production company, and we shot through the day, just shot a bunch of stuff with a couple of cameras around a car. And then we were going to hock it as interstitials, because that was when cable was doing interstitials, because they didn't have advertising. And most shows that go on to are all, say, if it's a half-hour slot, a show will be 23 minutes or 25 minutes. So there's always a gap. So they'd throw these interstitials in there, which are like mini things. There was also a great bastion for short films and stuff like that. And then Stan had just started in Australia, and the head of Stan took one look at it and went, I think there's a series in this. So we just suddenly got launched into it. We shot the whole of the first series of No Activity in 10 days because it was just improvised and there was nothing happening. So there were 3 relationships. There was Paddy and I, the cops. There was Dan and Dave, the criminals. And there was Harriet and Genevieve, who were the ladies in Radio Dispatch. So Paddy and I just spent 4 days in a car all day for 10 hours a day just improvising. But we didn't know who our characters were. We just had a starting point. His character was the young, ambitious cop who wanted to make a name for himself, who was who was single and wanted to meet a woman. That was his starting point. And mine was the old, over-it cop who didn't want to try anymore and was lazy as all hell, who was trapped in a loveless relationship with a woman. This was one of the impros, with the woman who I went to her house to tell her that her handsome pilot husband had died in a plane crash, And she cried so much on my shoulder that we fell in love, basically. And then she started hating on me because once she got rid of the grief porn, she looked at who she was going out with. So that was funny. But then we just would improvise things. We'd have starting points going, okay, here you have to convince him to ask her out on a date on the radio, or you have to tell a story to him about an old man's dog that you saved, or that had been hit by a car, and you helped the old man bury, and you ended up in a spa tub with the old man. Like that was just like really loose ideas like that. Yeah. And so I remember there was a line in that where I was in the spa tub. So there we are in the spa tub together, and Paddy goes, "What? You're in the spa tub? What are you wearing?" I said, "I was just wearing my undies." And he goes, "Well, I still had you fully dressed, and where were your pants?" And I said, "Oh, I took them off. They were my church pants. I didn't want them to get wet." So suddenly my character's religious. Yeah. So we had to kind of shelve all these ideas based on what we're making up about our characters, which then became our characters. And then when we did the second series, we just inverted the relationship. So we went, Paddy now is in a relationship with a high-performance sports athlete who is really kind of rigorous in kind of discipline and routine, and now that's driving him crazy. And I am back on Tinder because that woman left me, and I'm trying to build a profile and stuff. So it just suddenly I've got this kind of, sense of wanting to attract the ladies, and he's just like really over it. And so, but Paddy and I just have a way of working together. We did this sketch in The Elegant Gentleman's Guide to Knife Fighting, which is one of the sketch shows that I'm most proud of, which was on the ABC. And it was a long-form sketch show where they said to anyone in Australia, anyone can write for this show. There's three things. It can be no parody or impersonation. They have to be completely original. And they have to be long-form. So that means, a sketch, as we kind of got in the 90s and the noughties, became really short because the internet came out and everyone started watching real short form, YouTube, 10 seconds. So the sketches, when I first started Full Frontal, were 3 minutes long. When I finished Totally Full Frontal, they were 10 seconds long. It was just the nature of the way in which people started to take information in. Yeah. So this was a journey back to long form. So we had some sketches of 9-minute long sketches, which we would shoot in their entirety in Elegant Gentleman's Guide to Knife Fighting, and then they'd cut into 3 sections and space it out through the half hour. Yeah. So it was an experiment. Anyone could write for it, and then they got like over 1,000 sketches, and then they culled it down to, I think, 80 sketches, and then they got 10 directors, and that we had a core cast of 7. But then there was like a huge group of other actors who came in just for one sketch, and we all, the directors all did like 10 or 9 sketches each. So it was very eclectic and very different in style. You had the Van Buren brothers who just did ghosts, you had Trent O'Donnell, you had Phil Lloyd, the writer of the Moodys and stuff like that. You had, people that were coming in that, had done lots of kind of sketch and different sorts of things. I forget why I started telling you about that one, but that was, so Paddy and I would just, we're in that together as well. And we had a sketch in there that went viral. It was called OH&S Porn Shoot. Right. Yeah, you can look it up at home, kids. OH&S Porn Shoot. It's very, very funny. So it's a porn scene, and I'm the OH&S officer who is interrupting the actors who are trying to have sex, and telling them best safe practices and how to do things so you don't hurt your lower back, you know what I mean? Keeping your weight over your knees and stuff like that. And I just become this really irritating force. And Paddy is the director in the space who's trying to shoot this thing. And this has gone viral all over the world because it's so weird. Paddy and I just kind of had a way in which we would just extend things into the ridiculous all the time. We're just very good at listening to one another and understanding if he goes that way, then I go that way, because comedy is all about contrast. And, You know, if he tightens, I loosen. You know, if he gets hot, I get cold. If he, has lucidity on a moment, I have no idea what he's talking about. So you're just always working against, to find the contrast. Yeah.
Now, Colin from Accounts, you play Professor Lee.
Yes, creepy Professor Lee.
That's very important to put that in, isn't it? Yes.
I even have this for this season because I'm in the middle of shooting at the moment.
Yes.
Creepy Professor Lee has decided to really lean into the photography this season. So he's he's moving away from the Asian linguistics and the university stuff and really starting to become the photographer. He sees himself as the Spencer Tunick, who's, of course, the man responsible for those large-scale nude photos on Brooklyn Bridge and stuff like that. He's the Australian. He wants to be that. Whether he gets away with it or not, it's a whole different story.
Now, you get to share a lot of scenes with Helen Thompson in it. What's it like working with Helen?
She's beautiful, yeah. Helen and I have worked together a few times. We did a great Christmas film called Savage Christmas together as well. She's funny as all hell. Really, once again, a very experienced theatre actor like myself, spent a lot of years in the theatre. Where, the theatre, you learn your character work. You really understand how to put together interesting characters. You're not just playing yourself. Whereas a lot of film and TV, if you kind of start there, it's they cast you for how you look.
Yeah.
For me, I always ask the question, how do I look? I don't know. I'm a character actor, so I change depending on what's required. My hair's virtually grey now, whereas now it's this colour, so.
Yeah, okay.
But Helen's beautiful to work with. She's just, she understands the nuance of that kind of, North Shore, Sydney, Ivory Tower, Jewish princess kind of character. But she also is very good, like in the film Spit at the moment, the second version of that film. She plays the Bogan version of that as well. She's just very good. She's very good at playing those characters that are unaware, unawares. And I think that's, the great joy that I've had, say, in the Moodys, with Uncle Terry and this character, and, that we were talking about before we rolled, about that priest character I play, is that they're all middle-aged, white, cis, privileged, label men saying all the things that you can't say or shouldn't say, but I get to say them. And I'm very, very happy with that I've managed to ride the Me Too movement right through and say all those taboo, inappropriate things. And you get away with it if the character is unawares. If the character, one of my favourite kind of comics is Danny McBride, who did Eastbound and Down and Righteous Gemstones and Vice Principals, who wrote and stars in those, the black curly-haired guy. And he's clown, he's got an arrogant clown, but he's just very good at just being completely unawares of the effect he has on people. If the clown becomes aware, then it becomes intentional. Then people start hating on you because you go, well, you are a misogynist or you are racist.
Yeah.
But if the clown is completely unawares, it was the same character I played in Here Come the Habibs, which I did for Channel 9. That kind of white, rich, privileged neighbour who goes over to the Lebanese family who's moved in next door with a box of cookies from his racist wife and tries to make friends with them. Next minute, he's tripping over his tongue because he's talking about the Cronulla riots, and they're kind of going, why are you talking about that? He's going, well, no, it's just, we just don't have many of you people in this area, and but hey, it's Cronulla, and it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Digging a hole.
Yeah,
digging a hole.
So, it's a joy to play those kind of characters.
Yeah,
and it's the only way you can get the comedy out of them if they are unawares. They have moments, they have epiphanies. Professor Lee had an epiphany at the end of series 2 where he was by himself alone at the bar, drunk, basically saying, "No one here wants to be my friend." He said, when I was young, and it's a lesbian wedding, and he's saying, when I was young, I either had to be A or B, and I chose A, but to be honest, there's plenty of B in me. And then there's a pause, and he says, well, we've all sucked a cock or two, haven't we? And Brett goes, have we? And they go, of course we have. So you just kind of get this image once you set up something and you smash it down, but ultimately, I think with comic characters, you want an audience to kind of like you or empathise with you. And also be creeped out by you. And, you know, it's like a good villain, you know. You should be titillated and excited and all these things. You can't love a villain because a villain doesn't love themselves, but you can find them really charismatic and engaging. Yeah. And I think you can do that with inappropriate behaviour with middle-aged white cis straight men too.
Now, do you ever get recognised in the street?
Yes.
Yeah. The weirdest place you've been recognised?
Oh, the weirdest place. I don't know. I kind of get it all the time. I've got it heaps since I've been down here at the Adelaide Festival. I guess it's places where there's people that like artsy stuff. Yeah. So, you know, it's happened quite a bit down here. But then it kind of happens all over. You know, it happens overseas and happens in random places, you know. Because shows that I've done like the Moodys and Colin from Accounts, and they've all gone overseas, you know. Colin from Accounts has sold to over 100 countries around the world. It is huge, yeah. So you get those things. I always find it really kind of charming and lovely. I think it's really nice when someone comes up and says hello and wants a picture. When my first big show when I left drama school, was a big musical about Huckleberry Finn called Big River, and I worked with Cameron Daddo, and Cameron Daddo played Huckleberry Finn and I played Tom Sawyer. We became very good friends. And he'd just come off Perfect Match, I think, which was, you know, a game show. Yeah. And everyone knew him. And whenever we'd go out and have lunch or in between matinees or whatever, he would always have people come over and he would sign autographs, take photos, just be so charming. And I remember saying to him, you know, you make yourself so available for this kind of stuff. And he said, yeah, well, you just never know when it's going to come back for you or at you. You know, if you diss someone or tell someone to piss off, or, you know, they'll just go and tell someone else that you're an arsehole. Yeah. So you may as well be friendly to people and put that energy out there. Yeah.
Now, at the end of each episode, I ask a question to ask the next guest. Oh. But before we do that, our last guest was Millicent Saar, and she asked,
what brings you the most joy?
Yeah.
Working with people who get the best out of me that I don't see that I had. So, always looking for those things, you know, to reach up and be carried up to greater heights. Rather than tell people how to do stuff.
Yeah. Now, I'll leave it up to you now. A question to ask the next guest. It can be a question about absolutely anything.
Oh, a question to ask the next guest. And they'll all be in a kind of artistic arena.
Showbiz sort of, television, film. But it can be anything. I've had questions like pineapple on pizza or...
Okay.
Like it can be anything.
Right. Okay, what about how do you balance life and fantasy?
Yeah, nice. I like that.
How do you balance your life with your fantasy version of what you want to be artistically? Something in that territory.
Now, my final question for you is there anyone you think would be good on Let's Chat Showbiz in the industry?
Phil Lloyd would be a really good guy to look at.
Yeah.
He's really interesting because he's really kind of conservative and straight as a person, but he's just wicked, got a wicked sense of humour. So I would say, he's the guy that wrote the Moodys. He wrote Bad Moms. He wrote Thou Shalt Not Steal. No, not that one. He wrote Population 11, which I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm watching that at the moment, and I find it bizarre that it's almost all around your character.
And well, at the beginning, I get abducted by aliens. So you think.
Yeah, well,
and then I disappear for a big chunk of time. But they're all looking for me.
So it's all about you, but you're not in it.
but I'm not in it for the first part of it anyway.
Yes.
But it comes home strong.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a crazy time, shooting out in Derby.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere, in the desert, for like 3 months. It was such an extraordinary experience. Initially, I found it like horrible. But then once I started to open myself up to the environment and the place and the boab trees and the big termite mounds and once I started to see it, it was sort of like it became, oh, wow, this is what's so magical about this country.
Yeah, wow.
And the people that we met out there, these these people that have just outcasts, you know, kind of end up out there and who have these extraordinary stories, you know. It's almost as if they're, you know, yeah, it was an amazing, amazing experience.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to the end of our chat. Thank you so much for your time, Darren.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Awesome.
It was fun.
It was great fun.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Connor.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want more episodes of Let's Chat Showbiz, you can follow along on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Instagram, TikTok, and even Facebook for all you oldies. See you next time on Let's Chat Showbiz.